Hello, everybody. I hope you all would be having a great time, and thanks for joining us in today. Let's welcome Bailey Burns. She is a Citizen Scientist Astronaut Candidate with Project PoSSUM, and also a Systems Engineer at Raytheon Technologies. And I'm your host Shivam today, and today we will be discussing about systems engineering, and it's actually a very interesting field. And I think to get introduced to this field by Bailey Burns, it's really a great opportunity for us. And I hope everyone has tuned in right now. So okay, ma'am. So let's begin. So, ma'am, could you please tell us about like how you got into this field of space sciences, and what's your journey to about till now? What's your journey till now?
Yeah. So first of all, before I get started, I like to say, if you guys have any questions, always put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't answer them, feel free to reach out afterwards because I love questions. So my journey, I got a degree in mechanical engineering and a minor in business and economics. And that's because I really like big picture thinking and big picture engineering. I'm much better at like how I'm going to make a program work rather than, how a gear works in this tiny little machine or something like that. So I got a job after college or university as a systems engineer working for Raytheon. I didn't even know systems engineering was a thing before I got this job. And it ended up being like a perfect fit because it is big picture thinking. It's very much you look at the entire system and you make sure the system works rather than, like I said, the little gears and everything like that. So it ended up being the perfect job. I realized I still wanted to have more technical stuff going on in my life. So then I joined Project PoSSUM and became a citizen scientist, which means I don't do science in my day job. I'm an engineer, but I can do science through PoSSUM and give some of my technical expertise through PoSSUM. So I get a little bit of both worlds. It's been really great.
That's awesome, and it's really interesting to know that you are going through a training with Project PoSSUM for for the projects which you are doing, and I think it's on microgravity, right? If I'm not
it's wrong. What? Microgravity?
Yeah. I think your project is
So the way it works.
Could you give us some insight on your.
Yeah, so the way Project PoSSUM works, the original mission is to go to suborbital space. So technically, anyone involved in PoSSUM can become a suborbital astronaut, which is really, really cool. And that's because we're trying to study noctilucent clouds. So we would actually go up high enough to where we can hit space and become astronauts. To train for that, and different experiments we do is in microgravity, which means you're still here on Earth, you're still within the atmosphere, but you go in a plane, and the plane will go in an arc. And then on the down part of the arc, it'll basically be in free fall, and that's when you experience what would be 0G or microgravity. So we can get like little bits, like 20 seconds of microgravity, as opposed to actually being in space and being in 0G.
That's really awesome and interesting. And
really cool.
like moving forward, coming to a topic, the first question which comes in a mind and in any student is that what is systems engineering, and what is this terminology means. So we would like to know your opinion on that, know your insight on that.
For sure. Like I said, I didn't know systems engineering was a thing, and I'm really excited to be here today because I don't think a lot of people know about it. And I really wanted to make sure all of you guys knew it was a very viable option to be an engineer. Like I said, systems engineering is big picture thinking. You get a program, you get a project, and you make sure that it actually works. And that means you have to go to the software guys and talk to them and the coders and make sure that the software is compatible with the hardware you're on, or that the hardware can handle the power consumption that the software needs to process. And then you have to go to integration and make sure all the wires are correct and the ports are correct. And then you have to go to the test team to make sure the software team is writing stuff that the test team can test, or the hardware guys are doing things that the test team can actually, make sure works. So really, the coolest thing about software engineering, systems engineering, is that you truly get to go through all of the engineering, different types of engineers. You get a little bit of everything. And so you have to be this high-level expert. You don't have to know exactly how the code works, but you have to be across the board. You have to know a little bit about everything. And as a result, I constantly keep learning my job, which is absolutely amazing. I'll never be comfortable or stagnant because there's always more to learn about the system.
That's awesome. So basically, systems engineering is a field which kind of coordinates between all other departments in a complex mission or job, right? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay,
and it's pretty new. I would say the coolest thing about systems engineering is that you have to, it's pretty new, relatively speaking. It's probably about 30 years old. And what was happening is that they were getting these big programs, and like you were saying, these big missions, and little things were getting missed. And so the systems engineers is kind of like a new field that came in and said, we're going to make sure all of this works together. So if you're a planner, if you're a people person, you can go ask questions. This is the job for you.
Totally, I understand. And ma'am, just few months back, in one of the companies called as Star Labs in India, I did an internship as a systems engineering. So in that, one thing when I was studying about systems engineering, the main question which I got a doubt, I got a confusion is that what is the difference between systems engineering and systems architecture?
Yeah, that's a good question. And honestly, they do overlap a lot, and just kind of what you're doing. I would say systems architecture, kind of typically, they're a little bit more in front of true systems engineering. They're the ones, that's systems design, basically, and you're figuring out how you're actually going to plan and do everything and what the architecture is or what the infrastructure is. And then the systems engineer comes in, and we're the ones that write the requirements to make sure it happens. We're the ones that test to make sure everything is actually working properly. So I think as a whole, they're very closely related. And if you're doing one, you're probably naturally going to be doing the other. So, but there are different. Architecture does a little bit more of the planning and the high level design process.
Okay, so basically, can we say that engineering is more of like a deductive part and architecture is more of like inductive in nature?
Yeah, no, I would definitely say that.
Architecture is art and engineering is more of like, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. And, at this point, I would just like to inform all the, our audiences that whatever questions you have while discussing systems engineering with Bailey Burns, please do put them in your questions, and we shall slowly start picking your questions up. And moving forward, the next question we have for you is that what are the various applications or the need of systems engineering in the space domain?
Yeah, that's a great question because systems engineering is across the board. You can work as a car systems engineer or, like I said, a software systems engineer. Space needs systems engineers too. And it's actually even more important because we're starting to get into this phase of commercial and government space. And we're trying to bring balance between the two. And one of the biggest issues we're seeing right now is that the connection points between the two aren't the same. For example, if we have a commercial capsule and like a government rocket, sometimes the way that the capsule attaches to the rocket or how it'll dock to the International Space Station, people aren't designing for that properly. So there's this miscommunication to where those two pieces, no matter how important they are, they just don't work together. And that's when a systems engineer comes in and says, hey, you guys need to do this and you guys need to do this to make this work as a big picture thing. Kind of along those lines, just kind of, this is Bailey. I don't know how true this statement is, but from my point of view, what we're going to start seeing is a lot of like government agencies and stuff like that, like NASA and you know, ISRO and stuff like that, they're going to start be playing the systems engineering role. For the longest time, they were the developers. They were the ones building whatever was going into space. I think we're going to start seeing that is going to be given to the commercial world, and NASA and those government agencies are going to be playing the ones that the systems engineers that make it all work together and work on that connection point.
Okay, and I think at this point, many people will be having a small doubt that then what's the difference between a general manager and systems engineering?
A general manager?
Yeah, the difference between two, the management part and a systems engineer.
Gotcha. Okay, I would say they're really, really closely tied together. And actually, to go on, most systems engineers go on into a management position of some sort. My best example is one of the guys I work with. He was a systems engineering lead, and now he's the chief engineer of our program. So the biggest thing is that you do have to know how to manage people. Because you're going to all these different groups and you're asking them questions and you're trying to be that like middleman. And that's typically what managers do. They have to have that big picture thinking and the oversight to see everything is working together. So systems engineering kind of trains that mindset. And if you want to go into management, but you don't want to just be like a business major or something like that, you want to have true engineering behind you, systems engineering is a great way to bridge that gap. Typically, systems engineers go on to become program managers, and then they become leads, and then technical directors, chief engineers, that kind of stuff. So if you're very interested in that high-level picture and you want to go into management, systems engineering, guys, that's the way to go.
Yeah, so thanks for that insight. And at this point, people would like to know that what a systems engineer does in general. For example, in their day-to-day jobs, what are the various roles and points which they keep in mind?
Yeah, so honestly, a lot of people are kind of pushed away from systems engineering because there is a lot of like documentation that goes into it. And I think I personally, I'm fine with documents. It's not like I'm writing essays and stuff like that for school. It's actual technical documents, so it's not scary or boring or anything like that. But yeah, that's a big deal. Is you're writing the documents so everyone knows what's going on, which means you have to go to the technical people. And you have to understand as an engineer what they're talking about, but then you have to be able to translate it into words that everyone can understand. The other engineers who don't work on that, the customer who probably isn't an engineer at all, and they just need to understand kind of the basis of what's going on, you have to be able to be that communication point. And then the other thing that systems engineers do, I don't know if you actually got it. I sent you a picture, and I don't know if we can pull that up right now, but it'd be cool. If not, you guys can Google this on your own. But the systems engineering world has something called the V. It's the systems engineering V. And it's kind of our process on how we do things. Essentially, a systems engineer will work on requirements is the first step. And requirements are really, really interesting to me because they tell you the direction you need to be going without telling you how to do it. So this is how I can tell the software engineers, the hardware engineers, what we need to do to get our mission complete. For example, a requirement can be written like the system needs to be able to withstand 50 degrees Celsius because it's really hot in space or something like that. And then the hardware engineers can go through and figure out how they're going to meet that requirement. But I'm the one that's telling them what I need it to do. And then they go on and do the engineering. And then the other side of it is verification and validation, which means this is our way to help the test engineers, make sure that these aren't crazy, outrageous things that we can't test to. Like, for example, if a requirement was written like the system needs to be able to withstand hot temperatures. It's like, well, how do we test that? What is hot? So there's no way to verify that that is something the system can do. So I know this just got really technical all of a sudden, but yeah, if you guys are interested in systems engineering, go check out the Systems Engineering V. That's a really good oversight of what I do on the day-to-day of requirements, testing, validation, that kind of stuff. And then make sure you guys can write. Like I said, the technical documentation, it's not scary writing, it's not hard writing. You don't need to have like a beginning, middle, and end. You can follow the documentation flow. But yeah, those are the two biggest things. And then the last thing would be a lot of running around, talking to different people, figuring out how the system works, drawing a lot of pictures to make sure that everything's being captured correctly.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like we got the V. Is that what we're pulling up here?
Yeah, I hope if the audience are able to see it that way.
Hopefully. I see there's a question actually. It says how many engineers are involved in the system.
Are you?
I can't see it, but that's okay. You guys can Google it. So I'm gonna answer this question over here real quick. So it really depends on what the system is that you're working on. For example, for me personally, the program I'm working on, our overall program has probably like a couple, maybe like 100 or so engineers. The littler program that I'm working on has probably about 12 engineers. And so it really depends on the scale of what you're working on. And typically systems engineers are just the ones that know everyone and can pull on, you know, who the expert is in this area and that kind of stuff.
And that's a great question. And you know, at this point, we would like to know that what what are the educational prerequisites that a system engineer would require?
Say that one more time. Insights.
What are the educational prerequisites that a system engineer might require?
Gotcha. I would say
like
most
educational qualification or something.
Yeah, I would say most systems engineers have to have some sort of, you know, STEM technical degree. Like anything, I don't think education necessarily matters as much as people say it does. So if you're good at something, you know, go for it. But yeah, I would recommend going to school. Weirdly enough, stay with me here, guys. I don't recommend majoring in systems engineering for your undergrad. And I know that sounds really weird, but I highly recommend it as a field, but I recommend you go in and you do something more general, such as mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, to make sure that you get that big picture overview of the technical side, really develop those technical skills early on, and then you can transfer that into systems engineering. Systems engineering isn't super hard to pick up. You just have to know the right terms and everything like that. So yeah, I recommend going to school, getting a degree in like mechanical engineering like I did, and then possibly going on to get a master's in systems engineering. That would be a really good kind of path to go on, I think.
So that's a great advice. And you know, yeah, this was more of like that before going into something, a job where a person needs to have basic knowledge of all the field. It is important to expertise in one of those fields, right?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So, ma'am, at this point, you know, like one of my friend, my team members, he wanted to ask you that what are the specific skills outside of formal education that makes a system engineer successful?
That's such a good question. I love that. Yeah, like I said, you really have to be a people person. You end up talking to a lot of people. So if you don't like people, you need to go sit in a closet somewhere and not be a systems engineer. Because yeah, like I said, you got to go talk to all the different team members. Other skills, like I said, is basically know how to write. You don't have to write, you know, the most beautiful poem ever written, but you do have to know how to write a sentence and basic grammar and stuff like that. Knowing, like I said, knowing a little bit about everything. So if you know a little bit about coding and a little bit about hardware and a little bit about integration. But the biggest thing I can say is that you have to be curious and you have to be willing to ask questions. Do it very nicely, because a lot of the times you get these engineers who this is what they've done for 30 years and they don't necessarily want to take the time to explain it to this new person how they do their job. So you have to be a very friendly, open, humble person to go in and get them to explain to you what's going on properly. So be curious, be nice, be humble, basically everything that makes for a good person. just transfer that to engineering.
That's awesome. At this point, I will again, ask our audience that, we will just we will wait for 30 seconds for you guys so that you actually put some questions in, in the comment section, because we are actually expecting some questions from you guys. And, this is really a great chance, great opportunity which you have to ask questions directly from Bailey Burns. And she would definitely love to answer that. So I'm waiting, guys. Fastest question first.
Please ask questions. Yes.
Come on, guys. So if they don't ask, till then I would be asking some questions. So could you give us some insight on like how did this field actually came into existence? How does it need came that okay, we need a field, a person who could be like able to coordinate between all these different departments.
Yeah, I think honestly, I don't know like the history of systems engineering really, really well, but I would say basically what I've seen in my job is that these different departments get in kind of these like big-headed, my system is better, my part is better than your part isn't as important as mine, and I'm more important. And I think what happened is you had some really, really good managers and people who genuinely knew people skills, and they came in and said, we need someone who can manage people, but can also understand the technical aspect of what's going on. And that's kind of how systems engineering came to be. It's to be that kind of oversight, big picture, like, okay, you guys need to do this, you need to do this, and it's all very important.
Okay, so we are getting some questions. One question is by Ashish that, can a civil engineer go for systems engineering?
Yes, they can, of course. I think that's actually a really good starting point. Civil engineers are typically also big picture thinkers because they focus a lot on the infrastructure of a building. One of the words you'll hear a lot in systems engineering is infrastructure. So if you deal with anything with infrastructure, that is a great systems engineering tool. So yeah, if you're a civil engineer, that is a great place to start. You'll probably be a systems engineer for civil aspects. Like, buildings and roads and that kind of stuff, or whatever you're doing as a civil engineer, there's definitely a place for you as a system, because if you think about it, the way our infrastructure works as like a civilization is so important. You gotta have the HVAC systems, you gotta have the water supply, you gotta have the actual building around you, and you have to have someone that makes sure all those different aspects are working together. So that's huge, absolutely.
That's awesome. And there's another question that if people are replaced by robot in future, then how would be system engineering job? Okay, he's asking that if robots came into existence, then whether the systems engineer job would still be there or not.
That's a great question. I think personally, robots can take out a lot of jobs. We know that, and that's kind of scary for a lot of engineers, but personally, I think systems engineering will always be safe because you always need to have more than an AI thought process. You have to have that human aspect to just in your head double check that everything makes sense. Robots miss stuff all the time, and that's literally what we're here to do. We are here to catch the little mistakes, and I think honestly, even if there were robots were doing all of humanity's work, someone needs to be going in and making sure nothing's being skipped over, and that's the systems engineer's job. So definitely.
So even if robots are there would be a systems engineer looking, coordinating between the different departments of robots, I think.
Yep. You would be managing robots instead of people.
I think there's a voice lag every time. That's why it's completely okay. And there is another question is that how does an engineer evaluate fuel efficiency in a rocket engine like Falcon? Okay.
That's a really good question. I've never worked on a rocket personally, so I don't want to say anything that the true SpaceX people would get mad at me for saying. But I think in general, what you're looking at for fuel efficiency, it's just another test. Let's say I want to make sure I have a fuel efficiency of, I don't even know, 80% or something like that. I know it's probably not that, but So then what you got to do is you got to test for it. That's the point of what we're doing. So I guess the best way to do that is to really start talking to like the chemical engineers who understand fuel. You'll have to do a lot of testing actually of running it and seeing what the efficiency is. So I guess the best I can say is look at percentages and talk to the chemical engineers who would know what that is. And that's a very systems engineer answer. I don't know, but I'll find out.
And one more person is asking that how did you got into Project PoSSUM and what's your role in that?
I love Project PoSSUM. I'm so excited for questions on Project PoSSUM. And you guys can check them out. I found them through Instagram, actually. So you can go to my page on Instagram. That's at Ninjaneergirl. You guys can go there. Or you can go to their page, project_PoSSUM. Like I said, I found them through Instagram. I applied. I got in the first time around, which was really, really cool. Since then, I'm a citizen scientist and I'm a suborbital astronaut candidate. And basically, I'm just training right now. I'm going through a lot of classes. I'm working with the different people. If you guys know, like Dr. Shana Pandya, she's part of it as well, and she's been really helping me. And then also, I'm part of the PoSSUM 13, which is a Women in Space outreach program. And I'm actually the social media coordinator, which it doesn't sound technical at all. But like I said, I like people, and social media is a great way to talk to people and to connect with people. So I think it is actually helping me in my systems engineering job because I am working on my people skills, and I absolutely love it.
That's awesome. I think, after listening to this, many people would stay tuned to different opportunities from Project PoSSUM and would definitely apply for some. And
do it. Yeah.
I think another person is asking, can you get a chance to go into space in near future as a systems engineer?
Okay, that's a really good question.
Systems engineer get a chance to go into space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So honestly, the best thing I can say is that nobody knows when they'll go to space. You can be an astronaut candidate through NASA and still not go to space. You just do the astronaut job here on the ground. So it's really hard to know, yes, I will be going to space until you actually got the mission. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing, I would encourage you guys to go look at the astronaut bios on NASA because there's actually a lot of them that have masters in systems engineering. Systems engineering is one of the biggest topics right now for NASA because systems engineers have to be generalists. NASA isn't looking for specialists. They have specialists here on the ground working on the problems, and they have the generalists who can do whatever they need them to up in space. So systems engineering is actually an amazing way to become an astronaut. So if that's what you guys want to do, go look into systems engineering, you guys. I'm telling you, it is the way to go.
That's awesome. And ma'am, at this point, I think people would be curious to know about what is systems thinking.
Oh, say that one more time. Sorry.
I think people would be curious to know that at this point, that what is systems thinking? This terminology, what does that mean? Systems thinking.
Systems thinking. Oh, that's a good question. I think the biggest way to think like a systems engineer is to do stupid questions that the other people might have missed. That it sounds weird to ask it, but when you do, those other people are like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that. So like I said, systems thinking is being curious. It's making sure everything connects properly and that there's no holes. And the biggest thing I would say systems engineers is asking how. Not quite why, but how. You say, how does this work? How does this connect? So if you think how, you're going to be a good systems engineer.
Okay, and ma'am, there's a question from the audience. They are asking that to be a systems engineer, do we need to know about all the engineering field?
Ooh, I would say you don't have to go into systems engineering knowing about all the engineering fields because that's a lot to know about. And typically you'll learn a lot on the job. But what I do recommend is knowing, the basic laws of physics, knowing how chemistry works and how the equations work, knowing thermodynamics, fluids, that kind of stuff, because those are going to pull in together to the point where when an engineer says, oh, it does this, you can in your head figure out how that works in terms of physics or in terms of chemistry, so that they don't have to go through and teach you, chemistry 101. So no, I don't think you need to know all the engineering fields. You don't know how to code. You don't know, what petroleum engineers do. That's okay. But if you can know the basics so that you can figure it out on your own in your head, you know how to write an equation, you know how to solve an equation, that kind of stuff, you'll be just fine.
Great. So at this point, if people are asking questions, then I will just wait for a few seconds more if they are asking any questions right now. Okay. So, till then, I think the best thing at this time would be that what would be your advice to aspiring systems engineer? What would you tell them?
Wow, I didn't even think about that. I guess the biggest thing is to stay curious, honestly. I think any engineer could go on to be a systems engineer if they truly are curious, passionate, and they want to learn.
Okay, I think the voice, there was some problem in the voice maybe. Okay, there's one more question from the audience that who can join in Project PoSSUM? Like, is there some restriction to some particular citizens, or is it for everyone from all over the world?
Yeah, so Project PoSSUM is an international group, highly international. We love people from different countries. It's based here in the United States, but we have people from over 48 countries, India being one of them, Portugal, Canada, UK, Brazil, all these different places all over the world. So anyone can join. You have to be 18. And then we have two programs. We have the Project PoSSUM program, which I'm part of, and you have to have a STEM degree or a medical degree or a pilot's license, that kind of stuff. Or you can be part of the PoSSUM Academy, and that one's for the people who they don't have their STEM degree yet. They're usually in college, or they went into more of like an education route. Anyone can join though. It's great. Everyone should go look into it. That's it. And another person is asking that if someone is applying for systems engineering job at some company, so I think he means mostly the space domain maybe. So he's asking like on what basis they will select you, like what criteria or parameters, on which parameters they will judge that person to be a systems engineer in a space domain. So I think the biggest thing is you kind of have to be able to talk like a systems engineer, and that comes with kind of doing your own research into what goes into it. Like I said, there's a lot of requirements work. So if you can speak to how to write a requirement, how to validate a requirement, and kind of more those technical systems engineering terms, they're going to be like, yes, that person knows what systems engineering is. The other thing is going to be, so there's this new thing out there. It's called MBSE, Model-Based Systems Engineering, and it's this big push to move from all systems engineering being done with documents and just tons of documents that don't tell you much. We're trying to move everything to more of a picture. Everything's linked. So if you click on this tab, it'll take you to this requirement and that kind of stuff. So if you can speak to that, people are going to be really excited to know you're thinking like that. And then the other thing is talk about your people skills. Talk about how you like talking to people, how you ask people questions and that kind of aspect. Okay, ma'am. So people are also they are interested to know that what are your plans for moon? Like, is there anything any of your wish that you would like to go to moon or anything like that? I love this question. Yeah, so I am totally a moon girl. I love the moon so much. One of the things we didn't talk about is I'm actually getting my master's right now in space resources. And so that's like mining asteroids, mining the moon, using solar energy, additive manufacturing in space, all those really cool things. And because of that program, I got really into the moon. I think the moon is fascinating. There's so much going on there. We have lunar regolith, we have water, we have helium-3. It's an amazing place, and I desperately want to go visit the moon. So I'm trying to align my career to be in charge of lunar infrastructure, and specifically, I want to work on the first lunar base. That's my goal. So that's what I want to do. I want to work on that, and then hopefully one day I want to go live in it and make sure it works, and that I did everything right, so that I can go live on the moon for a little bit. That would be my goal, and I don't really know exactly how I'm going to do that yet. But now that I have my goal, I can start making those steps to reach that goal.
That's awesome. And I think, all the questions which we asked today, and people have gained a great insight on what is systems engineering, and what does a systems engineer do, and what are its need. And I think I pretty believe that this field is something which many people were not so much aware of, and I really hope that through this live session, people would have got some insight on this field. And if any of your friends who has missed this live session, there's nothing to worry about. You can just find us again on YouTube. I'm going to upload this whole live session on YouTube on our channel Spaceonova. So before ending this live session, ma'am, I would like to know, is there anything else which you really want to mention regarding this field of systems engineering? Any of your last words?
Yeah, I guess my last words for systems engineering is, like you mentioned, it's a field that people don't know about. So go research it, especially if you're a people person that still likes engineering. We need good systems engineers to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and make sure everything is working. So if you think you can be a good systems engineer, go for it. And then in that regard, bigger picture, I love helping people. So if you guys have questions, like I said, you feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Please reach out to me. I absolutely love talking about systems engineering. So feel free to talk to me.
That's awesome. So at this point, before ending the video, I just again would like to inform you that we are from Spaceonova, and we were really grateful, and we are really grateful to Bailey Burns ma'am to join us today, and also to all the audience who tuned in today and asked their lovely questions to ma'am. And for all the guys who are listening to us right now, I just want to say that Spaceonova is bringing more services and more such live sessions and webinars with various experts in various fields of space sciences. So stay tuned to us, keep following us, and I hope that one day the mission which we have to increase the number of space technologists in India, we would be successful in that and establish a global community of space exploration. And after all, let's work together, each and every one who is listening to this live session, and create a space ecosystem where limit tends to infinity. So thank you guys. Signing off.